Okay, we're just letting in a few more people here, and then we can get started. So again, everyone, welcome to this event. I'm Beth O'Connell from the International Convocation of Unitarian Universalist Women, or IWC. The International Women's Convocation is an NGO that helps support programs for women's rights and empowerment around the world, working with local partners. One of our main focus areas has been violence against women. Last year, we hosted an event at CSW on domestic violence. But we have seen that attacks on women have taken on a new form that is increasing, namely digital or online violence. As the title of this event says, misogyny has gone viral. For many of us, our lives have become more and more centered online, especially during the COVID pandemic lockdowns. The internet was a lifeline. We could continue our jobs working remotely online. Children could continue their schooling online. And of course, our leisure was also online. But along with the benefits of the digital world has come a new danger for women. Abuse and harassment online affects a woman's personal life, her relationships, especially an intimate relationship. And it can also affect her job and profession, threatening her very livelihood. Online violence is real violence. It has real life repercussions. It has real life repercussions in a woman's life. I heard a UK minister say here at CSW that an estimated 85% of women have experienced some form of gender-based violence online, 85%. Perhaps that's because there are so many ways a woman can be attacked online. The speakers on our panel are going to tell us about that. We have two young women from Northeast India who are part of IWC's Young Leadership Program, which is creating a global network of adults 18 to 35 years old, committed to social justice and activism. In fact, they were the ones that brought to IWC's attention the extent of digital violence, which especially targets young women. And we also have with us the Senior Policy and Public Affairs Officer from Refuge, an NGO in the UK dedicated to helping survivors of domestic violence. Refuge noticed this trend in online violence, especially on social media. And they did a study, and they have some recommendations to answer the question we all have. What can we do about it? Refuge also has some tips on how women can protect themselves online and on their digital devices. So let's get started. After all three presentations, we will open up to questions, which you can write in the chat. Okay? Okay, so as I said, let's get started. And our first speaker is Alicia Rani, and she is going to explain to us the many types of digital violence and cyber crimes. Alicia, over to you.
Very good evening, good afternoon, and good morning to each and everyone present and listening. Digital violence, as you know, is growing internationally. So, what exactly is digital violence? Digital violence or gender violence, it refers to acts of gender violence committed, instigated, or aggravated in part or through the use of information and communication technologies, social media platforms, or email services. Now, there are different types of digital violence. There are different types of digital violence, which includes harassment on web and mobile platforms, whether sexual or not, creating fake profiles of women with the intent to harass by discrediting, defaming, and damaging their reputations. There is also non-consensual circulation and malicious distribution of private materials, including intimate photographs and sexually explicit imagery or text. Now, when we talk of uh, digital violence, it mainly includes cybercrimes. Cybercrimes are proliferating at a higher rate in India. Generally, virtual friends, they gain confidence of their female friends and misuse these information of their female friends to mentally harass them. Such crimes are profoundly happening in India and also across the globe. For instance, blackmailing, threatening, bullying, or cheating via email is done by the perpetrators. It often creates a problem when emails or social media messages are posted using fake accounts and thus they are difficult to trace. The perpetrator framed these cybercrimes with particular intention such as illegal gain, revenge, insult to the modesty of a woman, extortion, blackmailing, sexual exploitation, defamation, incite against community, rank satisfaction of gaining control to steal information. Now, there are different types of cybercrime. A major cybercrime is cyberstalking. It is on the rise, and women and children are most likely targets. Cyberstalking is a way to use the internet to stalk someone for online harassment and online abuse. Another type of
Okay.
sorry, uh, types of cybercrime. Another type of cybercrime is defamation. It involves publishing defamatory information about the person on a website or circulating it among the victim's friend, circle, or organization. Another type of cybercrime is morphing. Morphing is an activity to edit original pictures in order to misuse it. Cyberpornography is also another type of cybercrime. It is a threat to women and children because it includes publishing photographic materials in photographic websites by using computers and internet. Email spoofing is also another type of cybercrime. It refers to an email that emerges from one source but has been sent from another source. It can create monetary damage. Doxing is also another type of cybercrime. It is an act of publicly revealing previously private personal information about an individual or organization, usually via the internet. Phishing is also another type of cybercrime. It is an attempt to gain sensitive information such as username and password. Trolling is also another type of cybercrime. Troll spreads conflict on the internet. Criminals start quarreling or upsetting the victim by posting inflammatory or off-topic messages in an online community. Now, in India, we have a national digital portal which was launched on August 30th, 2019, where anyone can report such cybercrimes. There are two types of cybercrimes which can be reported in this portal. The first is report of crime relating to women and children. Under this section, we can report complaints pertaining to online child pornography, child sexual abuse, or sexually explicit content such as rape or gang rape content. Another section to report cybercrime, where we can report complaints pertaining to cybercrimes such as mobile crimes, online and social media crimes, financial frauds online, ransomware, hacking, cryptocurrency crimes, and online cyber trafficking. Some of the major problems which we find in relation to cybercrime is that women harassment and related cybercrimes remain overwhelmingly underreported due to associated stigma and propensity of parents or guardians to not involve police in such matters. Women harassment and exploitation in cyberspace is increasing with updated technology and anonymity. It takes huge time for investigation, and many times these cases are unsolved due to lack of cyber forensic laboratories. Cyber laws have not been formulated properly, and the procedure for registering a complaint is not known by a woman. Women are facing increasing instances of abuse on online platforms. The perpetrators often know their victims well or they are related to them. Women are mostly unaware about privacy policies and safety tips for using social media sites. Women are often less proficient in using technology. The process of reporting such cybercrimes against a woman needs to be simplified and the identity of a woman involved protected to ensure that such crimes do not go unreported. It is necessary to simplify and strengthen cybercrime investigation involving a woman. A toll-free number has also been operationalized in India to assist lodging of cyber complaints, but many women are not aware of this and neither of the National Digital Portal. Cybercriminals use digital media to harass women, and even legal system is not defining the cyber laws in a holistic way. So there is a need to use a law as an instrument of change. These are some of the key legal provisions which are included under the IT Act in India, which states that it is a crime under Section 66E. It is a crime if there is a capture and electronic transmission of images of private parts of a person without his or her consent, non-consensual circulation and malicious distribution of sexually explicit photographic and video material about an individual. Penalties, if found guilty in this section, can be an imprisonment of up to 3 years or a fine of up to 2 lakhs in Indian currency. There is another section under this IT Act, section 67, which states that it is a crime if there is the publishing or transmission of obscene material in electronic form, graphic sexual abuse on social media and blog platforms, including trolling, sending emails or social media messages with sexually explicit content and images to an individual against his or her will. In this case, the imprisonment is up to 5 years and there is a fine of up to rupees 10 lakhs in Indian currency. Coming to the gaps in the existing laws, the act of doxing, which means publishing private images with malicious intent, are not covered if they do not involve the circulation of sexually explicit imagery and are unaccompanied by intimidation or slander. Though the IT Act does have a provision which criminalizes hacking under Section 66, it does not explicitly mention hacking for the purpose of doxing. The Section 66 of the IT Act, it mentions online verbal harassment, abuse, trolling, and hacking of personal information as isolated and individualized crimes. It does not recognize that such acts of violence are directed at a woman because she is a woman and affect women disproportionately. Last but not least, the IT Act does not mention the typical cybercrimes like cyberstalking, morphing, and email spoofing as offenses. So mainly these are the provisions which needs to be added to the law. In conclusion, the police are grappling with solving cybercrimes due to challenges faced by them like under-reporting, the jurisdiction of the crime, public unawareness, and increasing technology costs of investigating crime. Though now there are laws and regulations to deal with cybercrime, but there is a need to update these laws as there is rapid technological developments which are taking place and criminals are finding new techniques of committing these cybercrimes. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Alicia. Thank you. Thank you. And I'm glad you sorted out that glitch with the slides, because I know the first time I saw your presentation, I was just really struck with how many different ways a woman can be attacked online, how many different types of digital violence there is, and how there are gaps in the laws that are trying to address cyber crime, but they're not including the gender element in there, that this violence is directed at a woman because she is a woman, the misogyny in there. And also I thought was interesting too, is that there is, if the attack is not sexually explicit, it's not considered a crime, which is, what about other ways of being harassed and trolled and hacked? Need to broaden the laws to take that into consideration too. So let's move on to our next speaker, who is Lisa Lamar. And Lisa is the co-leader of IWC's Young Adult Network. And she's going to tell us about some real life examples of digital violence, some case studies. Over to you, Lisa.
Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time zone you're at. So to prepare for a seamless presentation, I'll be switching off my video. I will be beginning. Just a refresher on the definition of digital violence defined by the United Nations Population Fund. An act of violence perpetrated by one or more individuals that is rooted in gender inequality and gender norms, and that is committed, assisted, aggravated, and amplified in part or fully by the use of information and communications technologies or digital media against a person on the basis of their gender. The invention of the internet has connected geographically far nations and turned the world into a global village. The digitalizing of information and data brings about convenience. However, within this convenience lurks a sinister effect. Since the internet and all its functions exist in an intangible space, the laws of the land has been made redundant. Since Kong Ali Shah has provided the basis necessary for understanding the term and its various types of crimes, I will be elucidating her points by providing case studies on the varying degrees of intensity of crime. I think once in our life, we have had spam emails, either promising us large-scale profits for small-scale investments or threats of exposing our search history. These are common examples of minor crimes under digital violence. The case study is that of a woman in her 60s, someone quite new to the world of technology. She receives an email from an unknown email address, and it is a threat, exposing her alleged browsing history, which contains various pornographic sites. The only way to erase or conceal it is to pay up, the amount and method dictated by the sender. The next degree utilizes the anonymity of the internet to attack an individual in the form of harassment, trolling, or cyberbullying. Various social media platforms like Facebook and Instagram are utilized for such crimes. Since Facebook allows for the creation of a page, it can be used to create a confessions page, the sole aim of which is to vent or target someone in an online space. I too have been a target of these confessions pages, having had derogatory and defamatory remarks posted about me when I was 17. A classmate's dislike for me became broadcasted, and the anonymity allowed for the whole school to jump the bandwagon. Since the internet brings information to one's fingertips, it can be misused, and in this case study, liberties in accessing information were taken. A college student around 18 years old was scrolling through Instagram when she came across a profile that claimed to be her, equipped with her name and photograph as the profile image. The person who created the account went to extreme lengths to be her, even uploading photographs from her actual account. On informing her friends about this and having them and several others report the account, there was barely any response from the administrators. Since information is easily transmitted and can be accessed anywhere, cyberstalking and doxing have become commonplace. While geotagging an image may provide good publicity for small businesses, it leaves a digital trail of one's whereabouts and can be exploited. Out of the blue, a woman started receiving lewd and obscene comments on Facebook. The comments continued, and after a period of time, it escalated to specific comments on her clothing and even her undergarments. The perpetrator utilized all the information she posted to find her and exacerbate the harassment. Sharing nudes is the new version of sharing passwords of a social media account and is a warped testament of one's affection for their significant other. While it may bring parties in romantic relationships closer, when the relationship ends, it provides a large arsenal that can cause the social exclusion of the victim. While both parties consented to nude photographs or video recordings of intimate acts, the end of a relationship is the start of blackmail. When a relationship turned sour, a girl got out of it, and the boy took it surprisingly well. However, after a while, she started receiving threats about the content they filmed and or photographed being uploaded on social media platforms. The mental stress was so overwhelming that the girl attempted to commit suicide. Digital crimes against women is a relatively new trend in India. Prior to the Bully Bhai app case, there were two other such cases. YouTube channel Liberal Doge mock auctioned Muslim women from India and Pakistan to 87,000 subscribers, and Sully Deals, an app hosted on GitHub, generated profiles of more than 80 Muslim women as deals of the day. The Bully Bhai app case, however, was the first time the police could pinpoint and apprehend the perpetrators with evidence. It was one of the most shocking cases on digital violence in India. Bully Bhai was another app hosted on GitHub, which is a cloud-based open source repository service. The case is said to have been created by 5 people, 1 female and 4 males, ranging from 18 to 28 years of age and residing in different parts of the country. Bully and Sulli are derogatory slangs referring to women belonging to the Muslim community, and Bhai is the Hindi word for female servant. The app held mock auctions of Muslim women promoted by the hashtag Sulli Deals. Photographs of some 100 Muslim women, both well-known and civilians, were collected from social media platforms and used without the knowledge or consent of the victims. The aim was to harass, humiliate, and intimidate victims. Of the 5 accused, 4 were denied bail since the content posted were derogatory, degenerates women, and is against public morality. The Clubhouse app case is another instance of digital violence in India. The app is an audio-based social network which supports private audio chats or audio chat rooms that can accommodate thousands of people. The app was used to make derogatory, defamatory, and crude remarks about women, mostly from the Muslim community. There was an investigation into 6 youths, ages 17 to 22, and 3 accused were arrested. While 2 of the 3 were granted bail, a 19-year-old accused was denied bail since he had committed an offense not on an individual, but rather against all women. The intent is similar to the Bully Bhai app case, that is to harass, intimidate, and humiliate victims. The world has moved from the tangible to the digital, and crime too has accompanied that move. It has become the #1 con of convenience brought about by the internet. Since the youth are more tech savvy, there's a larger number of youth perpetrators. Hopefully, digital crimes are being taken more seriously, and with time, the prosecution rate for it increases. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. And thank you for sharing your own personal experience with digital abuse. And in that presentation, which, as you can see from the cases that she described, we see it affecting young people, but there are also older people. The example she gave of the woman in her 60s, and this thing that struck me too is this: once something is created, it creates a digital trail that is hard to control, that is hard to eliminate, to bring under control. And so it leads to this question that we all have is, how can we protect ourselves online and on these digital devices that are so much a part of our lives, but there is this lurking danger and harassment at the same time. So now let's turn to our next speaker, Jessica Eagleton, who is Senior Policy and Public Affairs Officer at Refuge. She's going to talk about the study that Refuge did on digital violence or tech abuse and what can be done about it. Over to you, Jessica.
Thank you, Beth, and thank you to IWC for inviting me to speak to you today. Hello, everyone. My name is Jess Eagleton. I am a Senior Policy and Public Affairs Officer at Refuge. Refuge are a domestic abuse charity based in the UK. So I am going to speak to you now about technology-facilitated domestic abuse, and as Beth said, our recent research on domestic abuse taking place on social media, and hopefully provide some food for thought to help answer the question, so what do we do about this issue of digital violence? So firstly, just a little bit about Refuge. Refuge is the largest specialist provider of gender-based violence services in the UK, supporting thousands of women and children on any given day. We opened the first Refuge in 1971, and 50 years later, we provide a broad range of services, including refuges, community outreach services, independent advocacy, and running the National Domestic Abuse Helpline in England. Domestic abuse affects more than 1 in 4 women at some point in their lives in England and Wales, and it can take many different forms. So it can be physical, it can be sexual abuse, it can be emotional, psychological abuse, and coercive control. And in our digital age, as we've been discussing, and as you might anticipate, it is increasingly involving technology. So domestic abuse is becoming smarter, and our job here at Refuge is getting harder. This is why a number of years ago, we also set up a specialist tech abuse service. And tech abuse is the term we use to describe domestic abuse via technology. So this is a unique service in the UK. Our specialist team have been specially trained, and they are expert in supporting women and children experiencing abuse via a whole range of technology. And about a year and a half ago, at Refuge, we identified a gap in the UK law that allowed perpetrators of domestic abuse to threaten to share intimate images or videos of survivors, which is sometimes called so-called revenge porn, as Lisa mentioned earlier. So these threats to share were not illegal until the content itself had actually been shared. So we supported survivors who were experiencing these threats, but the police were not able to support them until the image or the content had been shared. So at Refuge, we campaigned against this, and we were able to successfully change the law in the UK. So threats to share intimate images and videos has now been criminalised here in the UK. But returning to our tech abuse team, one of the most commonly reported issues that team sees is issues relating to social media. So we wanted to explore this in further detail to find out a bit more about the prevalence, the impact, and the nature of online abuse taking place on social media. We did this with an eye on upcoming legislation in the UK, the Online Safety Bill, which some of you may have heard of, and that is the UK government's effort to regulate social media. So we spotted this as an opportunity to improve protections for survivors on social media. And we decided to survey the public to better understand the prevalence of online abuse and to conduct some survivor interviews. And the findings went into our new report, which you can see an image here of, which is called Unsocial Spaces. So turning to what did we find in our research, we found that more than 1 in 3 UK women, around 36%, has experienced online abuse or online harassment on social media or another online platform, which could also include, for example, a dating app or a dating website. This rises to almost 2 in 3 amongst young women, so that's 62% reporting abuse. So we really see higher prevalence here amongst younger women, as Beth mentioned, at the beginning. And this really suggests that this issue of digital violence, digital domestic abuse could only become kind of more prevalent if we aren't doing anything to proactively address this. And of these women, 1 in 6 experience this abuse from a partner or an ex-partner. So this means almost 2 million women in the UK have faced online abuse from a partner or ex-partner, so have experienced domestic abuse in this way. So clearly a widespread problem. We also asked survivors and in our survey about the impact that their experience of online abuse had. And virtually all survivors said that the abuse from a partner or a former partner on social media had an impact on their mental health, or it impacted them in other life debilitating ways. So for example, by affecting their income. We know of some instances of perpetrators targeting women's online businesses, for example, leaving malicious false reviews on social media about their businesses, or perhaps posting lies about them on their employers' social media channels to threaten the stability of their employment. Sadly, 1 in 10 survivors also told us they felt suicidal as a result of the abuse that they experienced. And almost 40% said that they felt unsafe or less confident online as a result. So we are really seeing an impact here on women and girls' access to online spaces, which I think, again, as Beth mentioned earlier, we've all come to rely on, I think, probably more during the COVID-19 pandemic to stay in touch with family and friends across the globe. We also asked respondents about what happened after they had experienced the abuse and whether they reported this to anyone. And many women and girls told us that they did not feel empowered to report to the police or to the social media company they experienced the abuse on. So half of survivors did not tell anyone about the abuse on social media, and only very small proportions, around 10%, reported either to the police or to the social media company. And of those who did report, of that small number, many survivors reported inadequate responses from tech companies and from the police. So over half of female respondents to our survey said that the platform handled their report of online abuse badly. Many were left waiting weeks and weeks for a response. Some did not receive a response at all to their report. We've also seen some issues with companies not understanding the severity of domestic abuse or the nuances, which is an issue again. And we're also seeing few prosecutions for tech abuse. So we have supported survivors at Refuge who have experienced the police telling them that they should come offline as a solution to the abuse that they had reported to the police. And this really fails to address the issue. The perpetrator is not being held accountable for their actions, and it is demanding that the victim change their behavior. It's also silencing and isolating the victim when the perpetrator has likely already alienated them from others. That's a common kind of thing that we see within domestic abuse. It also potentially could increase the risk to the victim. If a perpetrator cannot contact the survivor online, the perpetrator may then resort to in-person forms of abuse. What was clear, though, from our survey was that there was very strong support for action to be taken on stamping out online abuse. So 96% of all women respondents to our survey said that platforms should take more action to address online abuse. And in our report on social spaces, we set out an action plan for change to help better protect women and girls online and to help ensure that they could take part fully in online life. And central to that really is robust and statutory regulation of social media. which really centers and prioritizes online violence against women and girls. So all online platforms should be legally obliged to prioritize the prevention and investigation of tech abuse taking place on their sites. So for example, here in the UK, we are calling for the Online Safety Bill to explicitly include violence against women and girls on the face of the bill to ensure that these platforms prioritize it in a sufficient manner. We also think that companies should be regulated by an independent regulator with robust powers to ensure that these industries comply with the regulation. And companies should also be regularly and publicly reporting on violence against women and girls taking place on their platforms. So for example, producing annual reports of the kind of online violence against women and girls that has occurred on their platform and the steps that they've taken to address this. This could also help identify new forms of violence against women and girls that are emerging online. Online platforms should also be obliged to cooperate with law enforcement and with other platforms to pursue perpetrators of tech abuse. Currently, what we see with regards to the response to tech abuse by social media companies in the UK is this is often quite disjointed. So where one platform may take action and perhaps block a perpetrator from their site, ban a perpetrator from their site, it's very easy for that person to then move to a different site, a different social media platform, create an account on there and move between platforms with these to perpetrate abuse. We also think social media companies should be working hand in hand with the police and with other companies to protect their users and hold perpetrators to account. So for example, the police should be able to access the evidence that they need from social media companies to conduct their investigations into tech abuse and to access that evidence easily. Social media companies and online platforms must also consider how their products can be used to perpetrate tech abuse and a responsibility placed on them to embed safety by design. So some features of social media platforms are inadvertently allowing or encouraging tech abuse. This can include, for example, social media kind of features such as self-destructing content, so content that vanishes after 24 hours or so, and generic default passwords, which can facilitate in some instances tech abuse. So all these things should really be considered from design stage. We'd like to see social media companies working much closer with VORG specialists during this design phase. Key improvements are also needed to reporting processes to make them easier and quicker and more survivor focused. There's been a move, I think, towards kind of robot moderation by some companies. And we would really urge companies to invest in training for staff to allow them to respond effectively to tech abuse. What we often see is that domestic abuse can be nuanced the way that it appears online, and it's too dangerous to rely solely on artificial intelligence to respond to that and to pick up on those nuances. We also recommended in the report that government should fund specialist violence against women and girls services, which provide support to victims of tech abuse and other forms of online violence. So many of these services exist, but they exist reliant on fundraised income, which is very unstable and doesn't allow for services in many cases to expand to meet the demand. So we'd like to see the government in the UK funding more of those services. We also think that training on tech abuse should be rolled out to the police so that we can increase their understanding of how domestic abuse is being perpetrated online and help ensure that these crimes are investigated and prosecuted fully. The police should also be allocated the resources and the technology that they need to do this, to promptly investigate tech abuse. And finally, we'd also welcome government and tech companies investing in raising awareness of tech abuse, and also the routine development and promotion of user safety guidance by companies. So public awareness of the use of technology to perpetrate domestic abuse is currently quite low, and these companies and the government could be working more to increase awareness and to ensure that users have easy access to safety guidance, so they know what to do if they feel that they are being subject to online abuse. And the focus of any kind of public awareness campaign should be on communicating that online abuse is not acceptable, and to encourage members of the public, if they come across kind of harmful content online, that they should report that. So that is a bit of a run through of the recommendations that we included in our report. If you are interested in reading more about our research and our report, you can find this on our website. But I wanted to, just before kind of finishing my session, just take a moment to provide some advice on what to do if you have concerns about online abuse and the safety of your technology. It's important to note that each person's situation will vary, of course, so I'm going to be providing some more generic advice. But if you are worried or concerned about anything, and about if any of the changes that you are making to your settings online could escalate your risk, please do reach out for support first. So, for example, from your national or local domestic abuse support services. And if you are concerned about your safety and need urgent support, then contact the police as well. But yes, just a note to say that we do need to pay some mind to the fact that making some changing to settings online, perpetrators may be aware of this, and it could actually increase risk. So just a reminder really to contact support services for help with managing this. General advice though would be to gather evidence of the abuse. So for example, taking screenshots and reporting that to the appropriate agency in your country, for example, the police and the social media company, and make the request, for example, for the content to be removed, whatever it is that you would like to be done there. I am aware that these processes can sometimes be frustrating, as I spoke through earlier about reports taking a long time to be answered, but that is our general advice still, to kind of keep a record of the abuse and evidence it should you want to report. We'd also recommend making a list of all the accounts that you use online, so social media, but also kind of online shopping, online entertainment, dating platforms, gaming accounts, for example, and then ensuring that the email connected to those accounts is up to date and secure. We actually have a guide on our website for all of this, which I will talk through in a moment. If you are looking to change the password, ensure that it is a strong and secure password that cannot be guessed by the perpetrator and is not using any kind of personal information such as your name, for example. And a tip that my colleague shared with me around creating passwords is to choose 2 random items, change some of the letters to symbols and numbers, and use capitals in there as well. We also recommend setting up 2-factor authentication if that's something that's available in the account settings, and again checking that the information here is up to date and is using a current email or phone number for you. We'd also suggest keeping location services off and not use location tagging. So for example, when you're putting up an Instagram post or a Facebook post, for example, being careful around where you tag yourself if you do with locations. And also to think about posting pictures safely. So think of what might be recognizable behind you in the background, because that could be used, for example, by a perpetrator to ascertain your location. And then it's a good idea to regularly review the settings in all your accounts as well, to ensure that the settings are as you would expect. And then, as I mentioned, we have at Refuge a tech safety website, which you can visit for further information on tech abuse. And there are some screenshots on the slides here. And here you can find a step-by-step guide on securing your different devices and different accounts, as well as a glossary and further resources. There's a chat bot on there, for example, and a walkthrough of common household devices that are connected to the internet and how to secure them. So I'll just move to my final slide, which includes the web link to Refuge's website and our tech safety website. And just in summary, really, what we're seeing here in the UK is an increasing use of technology by perpetrators of domestic abuse to abuse, control, and monitor survivors. And the solution to this, we think, is multifaceted. It lies in robust regulation of the tech industry, underpinned by safety, as well as increasing general understanding of the misuse of technology to commit violence against women and girls. And importantly, as well, through the empowerment of women and girls in using technology safely. And I will leave the slide up there just in case anyone wanted to make a note of those website links there. Beth, I think you're on mute, sorry.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Yes, leave that up for a minute so people can jot down the website addresses, especially that the tech safety website is amazing. I mean, it's full of such good information and all kinds of information. And thank you for that thorough presentation about your report and just how this new dimension in your work with domestic violence, how you spotted it and how you've been working to address it, and saluting your advocacy work to get the UK to criminalize the threat of sharing pictures without the person's consent. You know, not waiting till after the fact, but that just threatening now to do that is criminalized, and that's a real breakthrough. So thank you, Jessica, for that. Okay, so let's turn to all of us on the gallery view. And before we get to your questions, I'd like to do a little poll. And the way I want to do it is for you to use the raise your hand reaction on Zoom at the bottom of the screen on Zoom. In the reactions, one of the options is to raise your hand. And so my question is this: have you experienced some form of digital abuse or harassment? If you have, raise your hands. Okay. Okay, so I can see that a bunch of you certainly have experienced this. Okay, hands down. Okay, hands down. Okay. Very good. Okay, I have another question. So hands down, I have another question for all of you. Okay. So if you could put your hands down and I'll pose the next question. Okay, hands down, everybody? Good. Okay, all right, so the next question is, this digital violence that you've experienced, was it from someone you know, an intimate partner, a friend, a colleague, someone you know. In other words, it wasn't a stranger. It wasn't a stranger. It was someone you know. Hands up on that one. Okay. 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 Yeah. Okay, some of you have experienced that, which our speakers talked about, that it is often someone you know that is attacking you online using this new type of violence against women. And okay, hands down then. Thank you very much for that. That's interesting. Okay, good. All right, so I'm going to ask Karen Korch, who's IWC's president. She's been monitoring the chat for questions. Karen.
Okay, let me see here. I had the first question. There was a question about how does morphing differ from catfishing? I think that was from the first presentation, from Alicia's presentation.
Alicia, do you know anything?
Yeah.
Do you know that term, catfishing?
Yes. See, basically, when we talk about phishing first, phishing it's something which we steal information. So the perpetrator in phishing needs to have a lot of technical knowledge to do this. For example, I can give an example wherein I've also seen such cases, like in Facebook. You get these links, so they draw you to those links. They say like it's a job opportunity or something like that. So once you click on that link, your ID gets hacked. So that is how they steal information. So they get your FB passwords. So that is basically what phishing is about. And when you talk about catfishing, here the perpetrator doesn't really require a lot of technological knowledge in order to do this. Catfishing is basically you creating a fake profile of you can intimidate others like that. You can create a fake profile. One such example also I've seen this catfishing was I have a neighbor. So she's so much into Facebook. So she met a person via Facebook. He said that he was from London. So there are these pictures of him having these materialistic things, very very high-fi materialistic things. So in that sense, he tried to wow her. So he had also told her that his mother is currently in Paris, so she needs money for treatment. That's it. So she needs money for treatment, and he asked her to send money to him. So and later on, it was found that there exists there wasn't any such person by that name living in that particular place, which he said he was from. So he just created a fake profile in order to receive money in that sense. So that is what catfishing is about. And phishing, I've already said, is just for stealing information or in order to hack your account.
Okay. Okay, thanks, Alicia. Thank you. I got another question, Karen?
Yes, the second question is, are the fines and laws having an impact, or are they symbolic and rarely enforced as they are here in Canada? This Ashlyn is from Canada, and she asks, I think this is Alicia's presentation too, if the fines and laws are having an impact on stopping this or slowing it down?
The penalty, if one is penalized, the penalty the imprisonment is I think it's like a little bit fine because it's usually 3 to 5 years. But the penalty of a fine of rupees 2 to 10 lakhs, that is very huge when you talk of lakhs in India in Indian currency. So mostly laws are there, cyber laws are there in the country everywhere, but the main problem is when it comes to women and cyber crimes. Most of these women, they don't know how to approach or to report these cyber crimes. So the laws are there, but it does not. I think it does not really stop these crimes from happening, because we've already talked about this, that many of these cases goes unreported. Many of the women, they don't know how to go about on reporting these cyber crimes. For example, while I was making this presentation, I I was aware of these numbers and reporting in cybercrime in a police station. But I myself wasn't aware of this portal which exists where we can easily report these cyber crimes. So yes, we have laws, but one of the most important factor is we need some kind of an awareness, especially for women, so that so that they know the process of how to go about reporting these crimes. So I think that will have a huge impact.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah.
Okay.
So the next question I see is directed at Jessica. It says, as Jessica has already mentioned, how a majority of the victims do not come forward. Assuming the laws do indeed get updated and penalize the perpetrator, what are some other things support systems need to be put in place to aid the victims, especially considering a culture that highly blames the woman?
It's a very good question. I think I would, yes, as you say, assuming that the laws are updated and stay up to date with the kind of changes to technology, and the focus is on penalizing the perpetrator. I think something that I would like to see is generally more more work done by governments and by tech companies, for example, to raise awareness of the fact that online violence against women and girls is taking place. It's hugely prevalent and it has a huge harm. And I think, yeah, the focus really on emphasizing with any awareness campaigns that online abuse is not acceptable. I think some caution is needed with these types of kind of public awareness campaigns, because we need to ensure that we're not inadvertently educating perpetrators on new ways to abuse. So the focus really should be on kind of communicating that these kinds of behaviors online are not acceptable, and having that kind of underpinned by a legal system that will support survivors, and with the police kind of being properly resourced to really ensure that they can kind of follow through and hold these perpetrators to account. I think it's also important that there is that wider offer for anyone who wants it, who's experienced these crimes, to know where they can go for help. So they know, for example, how to secure their accounts. For example, if they suspect they've been hacked on social media, they know where safety information is available, and that there are specialist support services that are around and available to help them. So I think, yeah, and I think having those two things kind of in addition to kind of the law and regulations in place, having that kind of broader kind of consensus and working together across society really to you know, I think a kind of another organization in the UK has put it the term as kind of digital citizenship. So ensuring how we know how to act and conduct ourselves online. I think that's also an important part.
Thank you, Jessica.
All right, there is also a question that says, what are your thoughts on the issue of digital violence against women in the context of the metaverse? And I have to say that I did not understand the term metaverse, and I just Googled it. And so I don't know if maybe some of the younger people here understand that better, but if one of the panelists wants to address that. Jessica looks like she's ready to speak.
I smiled there at the right time. Yes, I was just going to say on this point that we have been made aware of a couple of reports of things such as kind of digital rape taking place in these metaverses. So in the kind of in these VR spaces, rapes of users taking place, which I don't think kind of VR is, I don't think we've got it, I don't think everyone has it in their homes quite yet, but I think that's kind of the way probably things are going. And just to say it is very concerning, and what I've kind of read from reports is that people feel it's got that, because it feels so realistic, it's got that added layer of kind of impact really. But I think, yeah, it's definitely concerning and something that we need to keep an eye on.
Yeah, can you explain to us, Jessica, those of us who are not as tech savvy, what the metaverse exactly is and what VR is? I mean, I know what it stands for, but people may not.
Yes, so kind of virtual reality. So it's kind of the way that I think Facebook in particular are really seeking to go down, to create these kind of these spaces where it feels like you are actually in them. So you could have kind of, for example, goggles on, so it feels like you're literally walking around a virtual room when you're actually just at home. And in those cases, kind of experiencing a kind of online rape, as it were, would make it feel like it was happening in real life, perhaps, because it's that added layer of feeling more like it is reality. I'm not a tech expert, so that's my analysis of it. But if others have a better explanation, then I'm sure.
But it's a good, actually, you know, it's a good example of how you take the new how people are taking the new technology and turning it around and using it as a weapon, to abuse people. Yeah. Karen, go.
Yes, thank you. That was, very enlightening. Let's see here. Okay, another question about the UK. As someone engaged in politics in the UK, I look on at horror at the number of colleagues who have been subject to cyber stalking. Is it more effective to have separate legislation rather than it being considered under other more wider forms of legislation?
I guess that's you, Jessica.
Yes, yeah, it's a good question. And yeah, the rates of kind of cyber stalking are horrendous, and it's, you know, very harmful and very distressing. I'm not too sure about your question, Fatima. I might have to give it some thought and come back to you if that's all right. I can pop my email over to you and we can perhaps pick that up, because it's a really good question, and I don't want to give an answer now, but I'd rather kind of have a think about it and get back to you if that's all right.
Okay. Shofi asks, are any of the presenters aware of raising awareness in schools and universities? Is there tech abuse training and education?
Lisa, you want to take that one?
Yes. All right. So from the last time I've been at school, we have had no tech abuse awareness. We have had anti-ragging, physical bullying petitions to sign, and that's not allowed. But tech abuse of any kind, it's not being touched upon. But maybe it will start soon, because as we can see, it's growing, and we definitely need all the help we can get to combat this. But yes, currently, to the extent of my knowledge, there isn't any awareness for tech abuse at all.
Okay, okay. Okay, Karen, we have another question?
Yes, most of the cyber gender-based violence talked about seems to be focused on domestic violence, in other words, individual to individual. I note here in the US, there is an increasing intersection between racist power groups using hate against women and gender CVV to recruit and define their group identity. What do the panelists see in terms of how do the current laws in their countries deal with this? Are the penalties higher, for example, or is this legally acknowledged?
So the question is, are the penalties higher for racial?
Well, it's as far as not an individual to individual type deal. It's using hate against women and gender CBV. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on what CBV stands for, to recruit and define their group identity. So just misogynistic actions and things online that are more, I think, directed to women in general, as compared to one person directing to a specific woman.
Okay. Jessica, you have thoughts on that?
Yes, I would say here in the UK, we've actually been campaigning at Refuge along with some other MPs and organisations to include misogyny as part of hate crime laws, which has not happened as of yet, but included already in hate crime laws are links to to race. So I would say that in this instance, perhaps there would be kind of different legislation that in the UK people could go down if they wanted to kind of use those current laws. So there is that kind of slight difference in UK law at the moment.
Mm-hmm. And Alicia pointed that out too in her presentation, that the current law does not indicate that that you can be attacked online simply because you are a woman. That it is an attack on you because you are a woman. There's no gender element in the legislation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just like yeah. Okay, back to you, Karen.
All right. I think that was there's the question. A question: I've ever watched a rape documentary and the perpetrator uses a book which was originally intended to guide policemen to process rape, gender-based violence cases, to hold the perpetrators into account, but it was misused by the perpetrator and he becomes a serial rapist who gets away with what he's doing very easily because of this book. Does the panelists have any opinion on the misuse of these resources that were meant to protect us by the perpetrators?
Yeah. Well, I think you mentioned that already, Jessica, in your previous answer, saying that maybe you could repeat that about how to be a bit cautious.
Yes, of course, yeah, and it is, a real concern with everything that we do on tech abuse at Refuge. We always have to make sure that we're giving consideration to the fact that anything that we do kind of publicly in talking about tech abuse could inadvertently alert a perpetrator to kind of, as you said there, Irene, around kind of methods to, kind of evade justice or to perpetrate abuse. So it's definitely something that we have to keep an eye on, and we have to ensure that there is a balance with everything that we do, because we want to empower women and girls to be able to use technology safely, because it's not right for women and girls to feel like they have to be leaving these online spaces or to self-censor themselves. So it's something that my tech abuse colleagues do quite a lot in terms of everything that they do, ensuring that there is that awareness. And yeah, we do need to be, when we're thinking about kind of anything, for example, that companies might be doing in terms of putting out guidance, we'd always say that they should be doing this in collaboration with specialist violence against women and girls organizations and experts, to make sure that they're not kind of inadvertently informing perpetrators.
Okay, good. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point.
I agree. That was a good summation there. Lisa, do you have your hand up? Were you going to speak?
Yes, I would like to correct my earlier statement. I've just found out that back in 2008, when there were a string of cases in which private information, intimate photographs were leaked on MMS, which is multimedia messages, the Women's Commission had a sensitization drive. And just last year, we have an NGO called Impulse working with the police department, and they have these awareness programs in colleges regarding tech abuse. So it is there is an effort being made to sensitize people and to make them more aware about this new type of abuse.
And Lisa, what age group would that be in the colleges? What age? How old would they be?
It depends. It will be from usually it will be from 18 to 23, which is from my presentation, a majority of the age group in which people fall victims to or are perpetrators themselves.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, good. Okay. All right, Karen, back to you. Anything?
Okay, there is a statement and a question here. There is a fantastic free script available of the award-winning play Maryland on violence against women in the context of the Sarah Everard murder. How do we have more creative outlets for change? So, and I would add, how do you feel, panelists, about creative outlets being educational as far as gender-based violence?
Okay, anyone want to take that? Being creative ways of making women aware about gender-based violence. Any thoughts?
I'd like to say it's the best alternative, because rather than just having someone, a speaker, and you as an audience, if we have different forms of awareness, it brings in more interest, and maybe it's performed in a way that's easier to understand, easier to grasp, and I think yes, and I think these alternatives are, creative, as well as they will definitely aid in getting a better grasp and understanding of the reality at hand.
Jessica, does Refuge partner with any artistic groups or or anything about to raise awareness? Do you do anything along those lines?
So we have we use quite a lot in terms of thinking about the press, and if kind of TV shows, for example, are featuring domestic abuse plot storylines, they will often come to us or another domestic abuse organisation in the UK to kind of ask for feedback on the script and to make sure that it's reflected. We also have, just while I'm talking about press, we also do have kind of guidelines in the UK, media reporting guidelines for domestic abuse. And then we back in November, I believe, we did do some work where a musical in London was looking at Tina Turner's life and celebrating her life. And she experienced abuse at the hands of her former husband. And that the theatre got in touch with us, and we did some work with them to kind of speak about that domestic abuse kind of aspect of the relationship. So yeah, we have done some work along those lines.
Yeah. A creative way of addressing this. Okay, good. Okay. All right. So Karen, anything else there?
Well, Amelia writes, I am a singer-songwriter and have a song coming out about gender-based violence this year, for which I have organized a campaign and am working with British secondary schools to raise awareness. It's been so rewarding to reach the teenagers this way. So she mentions music, which I think is an effective way to reach people. And Lisa writes that street plays, flash mobs, skits are other alternatives. So I think we get people thinking about various creative outlets. And somebody posted a link that says it is a tool to access people's cognitive impressions on certain specific imaging. Girls' uniforms, a music band's logo, t-shirt, a sofa, a boat, and it'll survey a series of images to get a response from the participant to form a trend in the result on how voluntary a perpetrator and how traumatized a victim could be. So that sounds like it could be a useful tool to help people understand the experiences that can be traumatizing to people online.
Right. And it's interesting to for tools to address the teenagers. Jessica, correct me if I'm right, that when you did the digital violence survey, the young group, or 2 out of 3 young women, they were like 18 to 34, right? Am I right?
Yeah, that's right.
Right. But you were telling us the other day when we met that Refuge is becoming aware of a disturbing attitude among young girls, young teenagers, about the digital world and the digital harassment and abuse that's going on there. Maybe you could share that with us.
Yes, of course. And this is not from kind of specific research that Refuge have done, but I believe this came from a kind of a professor in the UK called Professor Claire McGlynn, in a discussion I was having with her. And this was relating to cyber flashing, so the unsolicited sharing of, I guess, dick pics, as it's known as, kind of a person sending another person pictures of your genitals. Often it's being done via kind of, for example, AirDrop, which allows iPhone users to share pictures with each other rather than via message. And I believe what she said was that cyber flashing has become so common amongst, so commonly experienced amongst kind of teenage girls in the UK, that they no longer necessarily see it as a kind of like a huge issue when they receive these pictures when they're from strangers. It's sort of kind of expected that you're going to get these pictures at some point. But what they found when they did find it especially kind of distressing and especially harmful was when those pictures were being kind of shared, for example, kind of by their peers at their school, so kind of teenage boys in their class, and that sort of thing. That's where they found it kind of especially distressful. But I think it was the key thing I took away from that really was how much the kind of teenage girls and you know, younger as well, kind of even younger girls are finding it kind of increasingly normalized to experience forms of online abuse. Yeah, that was quite upsetting to hear about, really.
Yeah. So there's again, education, awareness, and raising awareness of this issue, of this aspect of violence against women. So Karen, do we have any more questions or there? Or are we ready?
I have a comment from Algiva. She says we must be cautious before clicking on any juicy advertisement or trendy videos. They may easily be hacking sites, and that's true. That's a good warning for us, because that that can happen.
Don't click on anything you don't know. That's for sure. Well, I want to thank everyone for coming to our event, and I want to thank our panelists, Alicia Ronnie and Lisa Lamar and Jessica Eagleton for their great presentations and giving us really good information. And I'm once again left with this awareness that online violence is real violence. It's real violence because it has real life repercussions in a woman's life. Okay, there are real life repercussions to what happens online. So it's certainly an area of growing awareness and growing attention for all of us who are concerned about violence against women. So thank you again, everyone, for coming, and take care, especially online. Thank you. Bye-bye.